It'll be exciting.
Oh.
And we're live. Check this out. Hey, everybody. I'm so excited that you are here at #SPSM. Big shout out to the folks who are just coming on to the Twitter chat. I know that we have a couple of sort of groups with us, some of us who really love the live stream format with the simultaneous Twitter chat, and some who like Twitter chat only, and so we've just been mixing it up. But we have a really great panel of folks for you tonight. I'm at Doc Foreman, your friendly moderator, and I can't wait to introduce everybody, but really quickly, I want to give a shout out to Tony Wood, our IT person. Tony, say hey. Or he's going to not say hey, he's going to be quiet. But if you do need anything, oh, he says I've muted him. Well, that may be possible. Can you talk now?
Probably. Yeah. Hey, everybody!
Oh, my Lord, that's loud. So tell everybody what your Twitter handle is and how folks can get information to you during the chat.
At ADWWW, and I am in the chat room right now at #SPSM.
Oh, you've been listening to like how to sound better on radio. We're working on this.
Oh, what can I say?
And we have one of our favorite co-hosts. We have Dr. Bart Andrews here. Dr. Bart Andrews, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. I can't get you unmuted. I've like tried. It's not me. I think it's you. I think you have to click the button. So we're going to move on from Dr. Bart Andrews. We're going to figure out. Tony's going to help him unmute. Let's bring on Ursula. Oh, he's in. Or not.
Sorry, I was blaming you, and it was me. I'm really sorry. Hey, good evening, everybody. Dr. Bart Andrews from Behavioral Health Response. I'm really excited to be here. And April and Ursula did an amazing job pulling together some of the most involved, connected, and super cool folks to talk about this topic. And I'm really excited about the night.
Bart, would it be reasonable to say there are a bunch of lived experience folks who have a lot of emotional and thought-provoking reactions to the Facebook app?
They do, and it's interesting to me because I'm a suicide attempt survivor, and I'm thrilled about the app, and I'm thrilled about what Facebook is doing. I'll be one of the folks that'll come out and say that here Facebook's actually doing something about suicide prevention. They got lived experience input. They put something in place to help save lives, and yet you have a bunch of folks that are really upset about it. So that's, you know, human nature, and I'm really eager to hear folks chime in because folks have valid opinions about this. I, for one, am a big fan of it. I think they did a great job, and I think that it's one tool that we have to save lives. There's lots of other tools, and there's more stuff we need to do, but I really commend Facebook on the steps they took, and Ursula and Diana did a great job, and I'm excited to be here.
So without any further ado, I'm going to bring on our ringleader for tonight's chat. This was a chat. And hopefully I can you unmute yourself, Ursula? So I'm bringing on Ursula and Diana Cortez. Ursula, can you do the unmute on yours?
Yeah,
I think I'm not the boss of it.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Woohoo! We're juggling a bunch of guest folks, and we appreciate your patience as we manage feedback. Ursula, could you introduce yourself and help your friend introduce and talk a little bit about how you came up with tonight's topic?
So it was unmuted. Is it unmuted still?
You're good.
Okay, great. So, yeah, so Diana and I both worked on this Facebook project together. We both have lived experience. I also happen to be a clinician and researcher. And you know, we got a lot of positive feedback about the tool that was developed. And with 1.3 billion users, we're going to have people who don't like it. And they may sound really loud, and we want to hear them sound really loud. And also, that's going to happen no matter what.
There's a little distortion, so take a pause and regroup. Go ahead and try that again, Ursula.
So I think with 1.3 billion users, we're going to have some people who don't like the app, and that doesn't mean what they have to say, or the tool. That doesn't mean what they have to say isn't important. It is important. But I think even if we built, you know, if we could see a perfect future and we knew exactly what was going to prevent suicide, we'd still have people upset, and we want to hear from these people. So Diana, for some reason I can't get her Twitter hashtag up. VCCORTESCORWANEZ.
And let's get Diana on to talk a little bit about her role in this.
Yes. I just being asked by Facebook to participate in it was wonderful. And then I was able to go back into my experience, even though I'm not suicidal now, when I was, and get those feelings back and the thoughts back as far as interacting with the app and being able to see what about it I would have used at the time and what wasn't. I didn't think these was effective. And then they actually listened to everything I had to say, and you even heard some of what I shared with them. That should change.
So, Diana, my understanding is that as you moved into your recovery phase, and the reason that you're on here is you've been a wonderful advocate for lived experience and incorporating lived experience into how we think about suicide prevention. And you've done this with Facebook, but generally speaking, that's something that you do as part of your regular life these days, right?
Correct.
So we're really excited. Go ahead.
No, just that I try to be an advocate for it in whatever aspect I can.
And so we're really going to be including the lived experience voice in this conversation today. We have 2 more guests to bring on tonight. I'm going to bring on Eduardo, and Eduardo, if you can unmute yourself. And thank you for everyone. And Eduardo, we're so excited. We haven't ever had you live like this before, have we?
Not on a Google Hangout. I've been on. Yes.
I know. We just had you like typing. What do you think?
It's cool. I like it. I've been on Google Hangouts a couple times for media stuff, but never with SPSM. So I'm glad you're doing it.
I'm excited that you're here. So talk to our SPSM community a little bit about what your title is, what you do, and then what you think about this Facebook app.
So I'm the president and CEO of the Mental Health Association of San Francisco, and I'm on the National Action Alliance for Suicide Prevention Executive Committee. I've also been on the steering committee for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline pretty much since its inception. Here at MHA, we run the Center for Dignity, Recovery, and Empowerment, which is a program through which we focus on a lot of innovations in suicide prevention that are driven by lived experience. I'm a survivor of 2 suicide attempts as a youth, and we work actively to develop services, supports, policies, and programs to help people experiencing suicidal intensity based on the kinds of things that we think and that people tell us they want, as opposed to sort of clinically driven intervention type models. I also have worked in mental health in virtually every setting over about 20 years, including crisis intervention, locked inpatient, etc., and have been on the receiving side of suicide crisis intervention as well.
So we're really, really glad, and you know, we've got, I can't see if I switch it off, we've got Eduardo Vega, we've got Bart Andrews, we've got Ursula Whiteside, we've got Diana Cortez. We have this wonderful group of folks with various kinds of experience in mental health advocacy, in the professional role, and also people who are survivors of suicide attempts and who have experienced suicidal thoughts and feelings. And these are folks who can talk from a lot of sides of the table. So we thought we'd bring somebody with a lot of social media experience to the table. And so we've just met. Rob and I have now known each other slightly more than 10 minutes. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Rob, and talk to the people. Introduce yourself.
Excellent, thank you. I'm Rob Boyle. I'm a product manager at Facebook. I've been a product manager for about 2 years now. I work on the Protect and Care team, which is a team that deals with a lot of different security and safety issues on Facebook, but also works on the suicide prevention product. And I've worked for about a year now with Ursula and the fine folks at Now Matters Now and Forefront on building the product experience that we've built around suicide prevention, self-harm prevention, and other related issues.
So let's have a very serious moment, Rob, where I ask you the question I asked you during the warm-up, which is why would Facebook care about this? Because let's all be clear, we all know suicide prevention is not usually a cost-saving or money-making item.
Yep, and indeed it is not. This is a very mission-driven project that we have here. Facebook's mission is to connect everyone in the world, and that includes both in good times and in really hard times. And so as soon as we realized that Facebook is a platform where people not only share happy moments, but also moments of pain and distress, we wanted to build out the product to be able to support people as best they could in those moments. And that's pretty much it. That's our motive. It feels directly in line with what Facebook is trying to do as a company.
I really applaud Facebook for taking this on because, I mean, they really are serious about coming up with ways to facilitate connecting and sharing, and SPSM, of course, uses a lot of Facebook tools to help us keep our suicide prevention community connected and sharing and engaged in our events. And you're also saying, I mean, Facebook is really recognizing that people who have suicidal feelings will talk about those on social media, and you've decided to figure out some way of responsibly facilitating that. So tell us a little bit more, if you can, Rob, about from a Facebook perspective, what this means.
What this means from a Facebook perspective. So there's two things. The first one is when we decide to tackle an issue like suicide prevention, we do the same. And suicide prevention is not a one-off by any means. We have the same sort of programs around cyberbullying. We have the same around non-consensual intimate images. We have the same type of stuff goes on there. But when we decide to support an issue, we really try to do the best we can. That's why we work with outside experts like Ursula and Forefront. And then the other thing that I think is new about this is when we first started talking to Ursula, we came at it from Facebook being a place where people express these feelings, but then one of the lessons she taught us was increased social connectedness and people, like the ability to actually drive connections between people who might be in a situation that like this can actually improve outcomes. And that was huge because increased social connectedness is kind of what Facebook does, and we were really excited to see our platform not just be a tool by which people can learn that their friends may be in need of help, but also provide help.
Mute. Here we go. I really like that you noticed this, and that's one of the things we talk about, and I've noticed that Facebook's mission about facilitating connectedness really does have a cross purpose with suicide prevention. When we facilitate connectedness with others, we may be reducing risk, and so Facebook may be able to use its mission and its unique skills and resources to possibly prevent suicide by facilitating connectedness. But let's be clear that this is not something that was unilaterally perceived as a great thing to happen. And so there was a lot of conflict in the media recently, and people have sort of, some people have some intense and more nuanced feelings about this. I'm wondering who from my panel would like to speak to some of the things they've heard and seen in the news, or some of the things that they have, the conversations they've been privy to that might talk about this. Eduardo is raising his finger. Are you muted, Eduardo? Okay, you're on.
I'm not muted. I just didn't want to intrude. I think it's also important to note that I've been the chair of the National Suicide Attempt Survivor Task Force over the last 4 years, or last 3 years, and I contributed to the National Strategy on Suicide Prevention too. And I was very impressed that Facebook moved so quickly on its determination to do something to support people, provide support for people experiencing suicidal intensity on Facebook, or people who were expressing that content. Now, I want to clarify that I think that there's some important distinctions there, and I'm not saying that Facebook necessarily has the capacity to determine between those, nor that it necessarily should. I've reviewed the app. I would say that in the first place, I would have appreciated an opportunity, along with many people in the community of people with lived experience, to have kind of contributed to a beta test on this before it was released, and I think that might have mitigated some of the issues. In general, I've seen I suppose it's not an app, the interface. I've seen the interface, and I think it's really great in a lot of areas, and in particular, the focus on sort of offering people, a mechanism of offering people support.
So but go back and talk about how including the lived experience community in beta testing might have strategically helped with the rollout.
Right. So we offered here, because we run groups for people living with suicidal thoughts and feelings, peer support groups on an ongoing basis. We offered, and I'm sure many other people did also through the country, to help Facebook in giving a sort of a test, including a kind of a gut test based on people who have been there, to see not only sort of, is it going to be really, really helpful if you're in that place, if you can remember, but also what are the things that you might want to be thoughtful about. Now, I know that Ursula, I have a lot of confidence in Ursula's work, and I love the stuff in particular, some of the self-help tools from DBT that were included. I guess I'm just kind of trying here to sort of voice some of what I've seen in our community about concerns and maybe a way in which there could have been another step to the process to mitigate some of the concerns. But that being said, I don't want to take. I'm sure you're going to come back to me. I'd like to kind of point out that I've heard various different types of things, but I would suggest that probably the thing that people are really concerned about, and that I personally am concerned about, is the option for invoking local authorities for an imminent risk intervention. Now, I should clarify that I've been involved with many interventions over time. I helped write the imminent risk intervention policy for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and we did a lot of work on how to make sure that those kinds of things, when they have to happen, are really truly supportive and are not experienced as punishment. But that said, I do not feel that, honestly, that Facebook is the right mechanism for people to invoke that kind of response. Now, I'm saying this because this is my gut reaction, and I'm actually very, very fearful about what may happen as a result. I would have suggested a local, very tight community beta first before going full scale. But there are many people who feel that sending a police, or maybe a psychiatric mobile crisis team, if you got it, maybe just do that. In any case, is a best option as opposed to doing nothing. I would suggest, however, that Johnny Public or Jill Public, who's using social media, probably don't have the right tools for assessing the real risk that people are in. And the danger is that use of that particular mechanism will push people away from having supportive conversations, will create unnecessary interventions that will feel like punishment to people, etc. So like
I'm gonna cap up. So let me make sure I got this. So one of the things is that beta testing would have allowed for a lot more feedback, and there could have been a brief period of beta testing that would have also brought the lived experience in a more supportive way. And then you're also saying your concern, which is that John or Jill Public might not be the best people to be alerting some Facebook. They may not have good discernment when they're alerting people about possible risk. And you're also saying that your big concern is that invoking what are called welfare checks, or invoking law enforcement to come check on folks may not be the right thing to do. I'm wondering if anyone else in our panel would like to sort of follow up to some of those points.
Yeah, sure.
Let me just qualify on the last issue, because what I was saying was not that imminent risk, it doesn't demand a response, but that having the mechanism for people to activate a response without a process for doing that or thinking about that is, I believe, a really dangerous use of social media.
Okay.
Oh, can I clarify real fast? Excellent, thank you. I just want to make sure, just to make sure that we're on the same page here, that there is no mechanism by which an actual user can initiate a welfare check. All of the posts, if someone does notify us about a post that someone has made, all of those go through our community operations safety team, and that safety team reviews the post in question, and they're actually trained on the imminent risk criteria from the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, probably the criteria that you wrote. And then they use those criteria to evaluate whether or not a welfare check is the best course of action. So that determination is made not by the public, but by a member of the Facebook safety team, who are trained in the same way that a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline rep would be. And the number of times in which they determine that a welfare check is actually the best move is incredibly small, compared to the number of posts that we're asked to look at in a given month or year. That's all.
Okay, thank you for that. So I've been misinformed about that, and I've looked at the app and the video that you produced. I would suggest that somehow there's a miscommunication there, because it's very clear in the video that you're in that users have the option to select that. So.
Okay, we should have some clarity there. I apologize for that.
Thanks for pointing that. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, the other thing in terms of who reviewed this, there was sort of multi-layer. There was a group of people who had suicide attempts and self-injury who came in and reviewed the first draft of the tool. So they looked at them on mobile phones. Diana was one of these people. Gave their feedback about what they liked and didn't like. This sort of user-centered design piece. That was one layer. Another layer was that I have this whole team of people with lived experience who helped develop the website Now Matters Now. And we have a private Facebook page where the content that was being developed by Facebook, each piece I ran past them as we went along. And then finally, additionally, I ran pieces past members of the Suicide Attempt Survival National Listserv, International and National Listserv, that both Eduardo and I are members of. And so, while I understand, of course, it would be helpful to have had even more vetting of this. We did do our due diligence on having people with lived experience along the way involved at all parts. So, wanted to make sure that was clear as well.
I'm going to just pop back in. I'm going to check in with you, Bart, and see what your thoughts are, because, Bart, you and I have had some conversation about just that there is, even before social media, a lot of ambivalence and emotional conflict about how to intervene with someone who's suicidal, because even without social media, when police are involved, when welfare checks are involved, the person who is getting intervened with will have mixed feelings. The family who might intervene or the friends might have mixed feelings. The conflicts that we're experiencing around this Facebook app sound to me, and I want to see what you think, Bart, they seem sort of reminiscent.
They are, and I think it's such a complicated issue, and everybody that's spoken, their concerns, their statements are so valid. I think that I struggle with this issue myself. I mean, one of the things that I want to point out that hasn't been pointed out is that people on Facebook do not need to go through Facebook to notify police about suicide-related posts. They can go directly to the police, which people do frequently. The crisis line I work at, it's not uncommon at all for us to have people calling us about Facebook posts, or to have notified the police directly about Facebook posts. So I think that the concept that people need Facebook to notify the police or involve the police in responding to anything that they don't like seeing on Facebook, and there's some people who send some pretty interesting Facebook posts to the police, that already existed before Facebook did this, right? So I think that one of the things that is a real struggle, and I hear this a lot, being a suicide attempt survivor and being fortunate to be able to connect with so many cool people that are also suicide attempt survivors. Folks, there's a lot of, I wouldn't call it ambivalence. I think there's a lot of anger and a lot of concern about police response around suicide-related issues. I think much of that is earned. At the same time, we don't have great tools to intervene quickly other than law enforcement, and that's a real challenge. Mobile response units, BHR has a mobile response unit. I love our mobile outreach team, but our response time is an hour, and we don't have the ability to find out the person's location. The only way, at least my understanding, I'm not sure that Facebook would release confidential information to a mobile outreach team, but maybe that's possible. But typically, if Facebook's going to provide location information on somebody from their Facebook account and from their IP address, law enforcement's typically going to have to be involved in that process, right? So there's all kinds of challenges around that. At the flip side, folks that are concerned about police response have very valid concerns. When you look at the number of police fatalities Police responses, about 50% of fatalities involving an officer shooting, the person is suffering or fighting with a mental illness, right? So the fear and the concern is very valid. I'll also point out that the number of police responses for suicidal persons is I want to say it's probably close to 1 million. I'm trying to extrapolate that from the data, and yet there's very few people who are actually harmed in that process. Keep in mind, each one of those that happens is unacceptable, tragic, horrible. But I think when I was trying to get this data, what's really interesting, your odds of dying on the way to the hospital or to see your therapist in a car accident are extremely, relatively speaking, high compared to being killed by a police officer. Now, people can debate that and go back and forth, but the concerns are valid, but we need to look at what tools are available to intervene with people, particularly people, this is really key, particularly people who are posting suicide-related content and they're not engaging. People who are saying, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z, and they're not responding to engagement. What options are available to us other than a law enforcement response? So I agree that whenever possible, a human response and engagement and attempts to engage should always be the first option. It's got to be. I think the evidence on that is clear. But there's lots of gray area that's in there, and I think that anytime you have gray area, you're going to have folks that fall on different sides of it.
Well put. That was extremely well said, and I thank you for really clarifying that when we're responding to folks who are suicidal, with or without social media, there's this whole sort of range of responses. I also really want to make people aware of what's happening in the channel. We're talking about some folks who find that the police response and the first responder response to them, the welfare check, can be traumatic. And as a person who regularly does have to call for these checks for folks who are high risk or crisis, I can tell you that there's a huge variability. I work with a lot of different law enforcement offices, and there's a huge variability in the quality of the training of someone who's going to someone's door to help someone who's suicidal. And that's not something that Facebook really created. That's something that's already sort of baked into our system, which is that we can't guarantee that someone's going to get a high quality sensitive response. We can only sort of hope for that, but that doesn't have anything to do with Facebook. I'm wondering what Ursula might have to say, or I'm wondering what Rob might have to say. I know that there was a lot of sort of pre-chat talk about mobile crisis units, about, in their best mind, what they would hope would happen if somebody flagged a post on Facebook. What would be the series of events? What would they like to see happen?
Well, I think we've set up what we would like to see happen, on the front end, which is that people are given suggestions about how to approach their friend in a way that's compassionate and not about their own emotions. So being present with them, listening, and trying to provide whatever is needed in that situation. And when somebody's saying, I'm going to kill myself on Facebook, which rarely happens, but it does happen, in a fantasy world, we'd help drive the ability or availability of mobile crisis units that people don't even realize this is a problem, that people have really scary experiences with police officers or emergency response officers. And Facebook's bringing attention to that. It was always a problem, but now there's more attention to that, and with that attention, there's an opportunity to improve what we're doing, and make awareness that leads to more funding of mobile crisis units so that they can respond quickly and have the information they need in order to respond.
That's an excellent point, and I can't state this enough, that it seems as if the fears of something going wrong after someone posts something with suicidal content and then there's an alert, is the system was already having problems. There was already things that were going wrong. Facebook now has this ability on a scale that's much larger than for us to look at a huge population and then see the variability of responses. But Facebook didn't do this. And so now we've sort of got to confront that we have a system that's often staffed by volunteers, law enforcement, people who are often undertrained and undersupported to do this work, and this was always a problem. And I'm seeing Rob nod his head, so we're going to unmute Rob and bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just build on what Ursula said, which, I mean, yeah, the response that we're always trying to engender is like everything for us starts with one friend being concerned about another. Like that's kind of the foundation of all our responses. So if you, as someone on Facebook, sees one of your friends post something that worries about you, all of our tools, once you get into our support system and into our help center articles, really try to push you to either reach out yourself and directly make contact, or reach out, like maybe you're not the right person to make contact, but you know who is, and like find out who that person is. Like we're really trying to get you to activate your social network and like your all the resources that you have at your command. And then asking Facebook to be involved is like it's just yet another tool in your toolbox. That's kind of the way that we see it. Is like we're trying to give you as much, as you said. There's a lot of resources out there that people have. There's the mobile crisis units. There's like various helplines that you can call as the friend who's worried to figure out how to provide support. So we're really trying to put all of those tools in your hands, which is like you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline and they can help you figure out how to provide support. You can contact a mutual friend. You can reach out yourself, or you can also ask Facebook to look at the post, and then once we have one of our ops people look at it, we can then push resources towards that person. Because I've talked to people who sometimes you're friends with people who are on the other side of the country or even in another country, and you have no idea how you would even reach out to, like, you don't know what law enforcement looks like in the Philippines or in India. But as Facebook, we do. So if you ask us to look at that post, sometimes we can now, like, we have relationships with law enforcement agencies around the world. So when you see something that's really concerning that a friend has posted and you don't know how to get a hold of the law enforcement agency in Mumbai, because that's not something you're equipped to do, but Facebook is. So that's one of the places where we can be a really valuable tool in the toolbox of people who see this stuff happening. That's my monologue, sorry.
I love your monologues. I mean, really what you're basically saying is that Facebook is not becoming the EMS. Facebook is just a second set of eyes and a lot of resources and coaching. Should you become worried about one of your friends, you have the ability to activate a bunch of resources. Right now, if you become worried about someone who's suicidal, maybe you have the sense to call a lifeline or ask for help. I have people who call my office and they say, what do I do? And then I ask questions and we figure it out. But right now, if you're worried about your friend, what would occur to you to do and what resources available are really inconsistent, and Facebook might provide extra coaching and more consistency and people knowing the right thing to do.
That's exactly what we described or are attempting to do. Yeah, and as has been noted, we don't always exactly get it right, and this is a very iterative process, and we're trying to improve it, and we're trying to engage with as many people as we can while we do it. But yeah, you described exactly the dream.
And then Diana wanted to say something as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that as a lived experience for somebody who's gone through it, when in the time that I did, this wasn't available to media. The social media, it wasn't what it is today. So a lot of this generation, that's how they communicate for anything. Not only you know, getting to know each other, but also in these really scary situations. So I think that the fact that they're able to address this important issue that's been quieted for way too long is really going to make the big difference here. I mean, I don't have all the experience. I only have my own personal experience. I know that Eduardo has his, as far as the all the research, you know, with a bigger group of people. But I do want to say that just as one person that the fact that it's coming up at all, that it's being talked about, that it's all these different tools are being offered, is what's really going to get what we all want, which is to help people who are suicidal.
That was wonderful.
You're on mute.
There we go. That was wonderful, Diana. It's wonderful. Eduardo, what are your thoughts sort of hearing this?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's like I said at the beginning. I have some concerns and I have some questions, and I'm interested to see how some of the things come out.
So, like,
but
what
I
are the
do
questions?
So first, I just want to point out that I accidentally just contacted somebody about Facebook to have them look into a friend of mine who was skiing in Colorado. So I want to point out that I did that by accident, going through the menu the way that I was trying to just sort of see what was happening. and so I think it's something to be thoughtful of, though. There's an ease of which things could go awry. Now, I think that you've hit on a lot of the issues, and Ursula is absolutely right. I mean, I love to hear people talk about mobile crisis and places like, but the fact is there really isn't very much, and that is actually a lot of times is in fact comes sometimes even after law enforcement. We don't have the right way to respond to people in general in public systems. And I think that what I hear from people a lot, and I have people that call me, I don't run a crisis center, I want to point out, we have a warm line. But I have people that call me, including friends, regularly every year and say, I'm feeling terrible, I really need help. The last thing I want is to have the police come to my house or to go to the hospital. So we need other resources in our communities to help people. And like I said, I love the aspect of promoting social connectedness, giving people an opportunity to send a nice note to a friend, a private message. I think that's perfectly appropriate for social media, absolutely. And I'm really impressed. I think I got to say honestly that Facebook has shouldered a kind of a responsibility with regard to third-person intervention. But I believe that the variability in terms of what happens on that other end is really, really extreme. And especially you start to talk about places like other countries and things like that. There are many countries still in which somebody will be taken away and the most coercive, and I'm not going to describe things that I know happen, but I've heard many. So if Facebook is taking on a serious sort of internal suicide prevention team framework, I think that's brilliant. But I want to make sure that social media, stays sociable, so to speak, because there is a danger on the other side, which is that people will not feel like they can reach out to friends and family and stuff like that. And I don't know how to solve that. But the other thing, I think the thing that I would really like to see happen, sort of next is, as Ursula suggested, Facebook, helping people think about how do you develop new kinds of resources for people. As an example, the referral doesn't have to be to a police officer, or depending on the level of interactivity, you could refer to somebody to a peer self-help group. You could refer somebody to an online self-help framework, and there's some that are out there and things like that. The thing is, I think what people are really concerned about is that at the end, Facebook only has a hammer, and that hammer is going to come down on the button to call the police or the local emergency response. And for some people, those experiences will be negative and actually will not be serving what they need either. So I'm not saying that that we shouldn't do good things.
No, I think what you're really pointing out, though, is that Facebook did not create all of this sort of deficit in our ability to respond to suicidal crisis, but that it really is amplifying our awareness of it, that suddenly when Facebook is connected and has all these relationships, we begin to see this high variability, we begin to see that there are these traumatic responses, and it's visible in a way not everybody really had to face. I mean, folks you and I, right, Eduardo, or Bart or Ursula, when we have to interact with a lot of emergency systems, we become aware. But if you don't do this kind of work, there's not usually that level of awareness. But Facebook it's gonna be visible if Facebook does it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to me, this is actually very interesting in the form of a social experiment. Because I'm very interested to see what happens over time. But like I said, what my advocacy is about is creating more supportive communities. And I believe that Facebook could, not say could have, still could, encourage more of a supportive community through its framework, through its social media mechanism, as opposed to a kind of what we classically hear as sort of gatekeeper, right? So this is essentially a gatekeeper approach, ultimately.
So I'm going to bring up
people
Rob.
in the community, what some people don't like about the term gatekeeper is a good example, right? For some people that sounds like, hey, you're letting them in the gate. Isn't that nice? Other people hear the clanging of the gate behind them, and that can be a very, very terrible, and like, I don't mean to be ironic about it, but it can be a really scary thing in and of itself.
This is we're dealing with multi-feeds. I really appreciate everyone's patience. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. There's a large group effort supporting this. I'm going to bring up Rob. I see him nodding emphatically.
So I'm going to sound like a broken record for 1 second, which is I just want to reiterate that the number of times in which we actually do call law enforcement is very, very, very small. I would say probably in 99% of all cases, the resources that we push towards the person who may be in distress are not law enforcement related. They're the tools that we built with Ursula, and they're much more along the lines of sending people links to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. We now include their phone number directly, and not just the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, but since it's globally, like depending where you are geographically, we'll push you to whoever the most relevant or the National Suicide Lifeline equivalent in your geography. So it's resources of that nature. We send now a video from Now Matters Now. We send tips that we developed, co-developed with Forefront. So it's much more of the resources and trying to give you options. And then the law enforcement piece is only in those cases where we really think there's imminent risk. So I disagree slightly with the hammer. I think we have like the hammer that gets brought out very, 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 very seldomly, and then the majority of responses, which is this kind of like attempting to provide resources. What I would love to actually talk more about and learn more about is we knew that this was not the most complete solution we could create, and that exactly what you described, which is creating supportive communities, is something that I'd love to explore in the future. And because exactly what you described, which is that you think Facebook as a platform and a framework can be something on which all of these wonderful communities providing peer support can draw more from. And I would love for Facebook to be a resource and a platform by which peer support communities could grow and do even better work. And then I'd also love to then connect those peer support communities with the people who may be in distress, both those things. So everything that you said about enabling those types of communities and them being like some of the most valuable players in this is totally jives with how we think.
Yeah, I just want to add too that from the beginning it was designed to be a non-punitive, non-gatekeeper-like experience. I hate that term as well. That the idea is like if you are looking for support and how to communicate with a friend, here's some ideas about how not to be an asshole in that situation. And then if you're, because people are, I've had this experience, and then
can I just intervene? Like that should be your clickbait article, Ursula. How not, someone is suicidal. How not to be an asshole should be on BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
I'm going to go rename our Help Center article right now. 1 second.
So it's really pointed at like not about letting people in or catching people, but about like how to do a better job at being human with people, which we as a society have a long ways to go. How to be comfortable managing strong negative emotions and not, panicking and making it about ourselves when those are other people's experiences. And that's what this is about. It's also set up so that there are multiple places where this gets reviewed. So when we say review, I don't even like the word review, but if you ask Facebook for help and they give you some suggestions, the last option is to have Facebook take a look at it. That if you're doing this for bullying purposes or you accidentally click this, well then it goes to Facebook's highly trained review team and they say, this is just silly. We're not even going to push resources to this person. This was obviously an accident about somebody who's on a ski trip, or this is not suicidal content. Then they wouldn't even be sent resources to that person. if the post did include suicidal content, then it's likely that Facebook's review team would offer these resources. So just trying to clarify a little bit that then it gets to, if the person is offered resources, they get them, it says at the beginning, like, this may, we may be wrong about this. Maybe these aren't appropriate for you, and in that case, no worries, please disregard. People are not forced to look through them. They can, click out of them right away. It's really designed to be non-coercive and non-punitive and like, we know what's best for you. It's not that.
Managing all the things I'm clicking on is getting really interesting, but that was a brilliant. You guys are really having a really great conversation. We're getting into the last 15 minutes, and we've covered this much of all the things that we could have talked about. A lot of folks are talking about in our feed about how to get folks connected with peers who want to listen. I want to sort of throw something really quick out to the group. Like, has there even been like a Reddit AMA from Facebook about this? Like, I think this would be, that is the community. There's the Suicide Watch community, and there are a lot of folks on Reddit who are very interested in these kinds of things, and those are the folks that I think are the, your early adopter and users of these sorts of things. Have we considered doing that? Have we considered really trying to have a public conversation of, does everybody realize how difficult suicide prevention is? Because it's this patchwork of services often provided by volunteers and funded on donations. Did you not know that? Like, do we have any plans to start having more social media conversations? Bringing up Rob here, if I can.
I don't have any direct plans. We do. We're starting to get outside of my zone of competency here. So I will deflect to our comms department. I do know though that involving the community and getting feedback has been like this is one of the products I've worked on at Facebook, where getting feedback from community, especially the lived experience community, and like those who are actually doing the work out there, because as you said, a lot of it is volunteers, has been really core to its development. So anything that we can do to either get more feedback or to communicate more with the communities who are involved, the better. As for specific plans, I don't have any, but yeah, it's definitely something that I'll pursue with our communications folks.
Keep having to unmute myself. Thank you so much. I would love for there to be more conversations, both to talk about Facebook's app and how these concerns are related to bigger concerns about suicide prevention that are bigger than Facebook. Because I don't think Facebook should take the heat for stuff that's a problem that most of us encounter every day. What do you think about that, Eduardo?
Well, I would say that that's true, except that Facebook's clearly in the kitchen now, so I mean, they're going to get the heat. I mean, there's no way about it. I mean, I think one of the questions that I think we all sort of don't really ask, although it's in the back of our minds a lot, is really about threshold, and sort of John and Jill, or Juan and Juanita's threshold for understanding, reacting to suicidal content, or even the expression of ideas around that. As a community in the mental health and suicide prevention community, our threshold is relatively high. But, I mean, I've been a part, not through Facebook, obviously, but through other things. I've seen communications in which, there's a lot of either really negative, really shaming, counter communication with regards to people expressing bad feelings or self-harm feelings, where there's sometimes encouragement and this sort of thing. And insofar as social media serves as a nexus for that, it's I think what it hasn't been able to do, and maybe that we could do, is help people have conversations. That's to say, not just say this kind of thing, but to think about what does it mean to be supportive. What are the impacts of reacting to content in one way or the other? And I think that the app does approach that a little bit, but when it comes down to it, what I think a lot of people really are worried about, and this is the problem with social media that I don't know how to fix by any means, is just at the threshold for involvement is so low, right? It's so easy to say, I liked that, or not say anything, or something like that. And somebody recently said that
quickly, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, you could click a button. You could just be like, I'm reporting that. Like, so you're worried that like that level of pause between hearing something and reacting is going to be so short on Facebook that we might have people really reacting. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. I mean, if it sort of gets out, it'll be interesting to see over time how it's used and to what degree. But there's always that kind of aspect. I guess the other thing is that it's actually really good that Facebook's doing this, because as my friend's therapist just recently said, that Facebook causes more misery to more people around the world every hour by virtue of everybody posting how happy they are. That having something that goes to the other side is useful. I just would like to find a way to make it more educational for people, I suppose.
So I want to check in with Bart, because we're getting close to the end of the hour. Bart, we've just done a ton of content. I'm going to sort of call on your superpowers for summing up and then putting into context.
Well, I think, one, what an amazing conversation, and what an amazing group of folks to be able to get these folks together and sit down and have an open, honest conversation about this. I think is another sign that the world around suicide prevention is changing, right? I think the fact that Facebook devoted so much time and energy to this and took a risk of doing this, because they didn't have to do this. They could have left it the way it was, man, and they did something, and that also is a sign that the times are changing, and that's really cool. Being in an agency where you do things and sometimes there's people who are unhappy about it and some people are happy about it, you're never going to please everybody all the time, and you learn and you adapt. I would like to see the next stage, and watching the thread and seeing all of our amazing SPSM folks, the idea of suicide prevention being more community-based, right? This is a step in that direction, right? It truly is. It may not be the step that everybody would like to see, but I don't think there's a giant leapfrog we can make from the current approach that we have to it being completely community-based, because there's no structure there for that. So steps like this help us create the conversation, have that conversation. And I also see folks are talking about, well, they're afraid of Facebook. Well, you know what? They should be, not because Facebook is evil or bad, but everything you do on Facebook is visible to all the people that you friend, and often, depending on your settings, to all kinds of people that you don't friend. So should you be concerned about what you're saying about yourself and your life in a medium where literally thousands of people that you don't even know can see it? I say yes, you should have valid concerns about how you're portraying yourself and what expectation and I think I do get a little frustrated. If you think you have privacy in the social media sphere, I've got news for you. You don't. So when people are outraged that they feel their privacy is being violated when they're posting stuff on social media, okay, well, if you want it to be private, don't go on social media. And that may not be what anybody wants to hear, but I'm going to say it. Social media, by its nature, is not a private communication system. So we all need to accept that. Are there things we could do to improve that and try to protect privacy? Yes, right? But I love the fact that we're starting to think about what can we do to get more people involved, and the idea that everybody should be trained in suicide prevention. Everybody should know how, and one of the biggest things that not be an asshole is getting so much buzz. How can we get everybody to not be an asshole when they're talking to people in their life or run into people who are talking about suicide? I think that is huge, and this is a good first step towards that, right? So I'm really excited about it. I tip my hat to Facebook. They did a nice job.
That was a wonderful sum up. We're hearing a lot of folks say, well, why don't we just have Facebook automatically connect folks with counselors? And that's Beata, and I hope I'm getting your name right, Beata Caroline, who is new to me. And hi, thank you for joining in. I want to point out that in any given moment in time, there are so many folks experiencing a suicidal crisis, and this is how many counselors you have, and this is how big the need is. And we don't have enough hospital beds, we don't have enough therapists. Like that traditional model for how we would intervene, it's not going to work. We couldn't ever train enough, and you couldn't pay for us if you did. It's not going to work. So Facebook is really partnering with Forefront and a lot of folks from what I understand, and this is just my personal opinion, to try to come up with some other means of responding that's incorporating the community's vested interest, all of us being humans together and connected, and helping each other effectively because not everyone should be contacted by law enforcement or go to the hospital. As a matter of fact, that's useful and only very rarely. Most people actually need something else. And trained therapists, we don't have enough to put them on the doorsteps of everyone who needs us, and we're never going to. So if we were really going to face what social media has done, which is make visible something that was happening before invisibly, we're going to have to come up with a new solution. And more of me isn't, or more shrinks is not going to do it. Rob, you were nodding.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, I totally agree with you on the resource gap. And how much of a part did you, and I'd put this question to the panel as well, like how big of a part do you think peer support communities can play in bridging this resource gap? Where, like, I feel like all the people that I've talked to, some of the most valuable resources have been peer support communities, and those are one of the resources that are not necessarily as constrained as therapists or hospital beds. So that's the first part question, is like how much of this gap can be bridged by peer communities?
Let me pop in on that one, because I'm thinking of a crisis call that I took this week where I have someone who's called me in crisis. This is a person I'm deeply familiar with, but this time they conference called in their peer friend who they have been with successfully and stably at various points, who they were now separated from far, far away. That peer was able to help me manage a difficult situation with someone with a difficult problem better than any other crisis contact I'd ever had. So the issue is, yes, peers need to be involved, and yes, especially peers who know and are connected to the person in crisis, especially ones who are effective. I have often seen that turn out better.
And then I'm sorry,
no, I was just saying thank
you. Yeah, well, I mean, I'd like to just add that we've seen a lot of fear in this area. And I just want to point that out there so that it doesn't go unsaid. For many, many years, there's been a very systematic belief or systematically held view that people who have been suicidal should not be talking to others, because who knows what, they would encourage them, they would talk about methods, all sorts of really just stigmatizing views based on the idea that we, people who experience suicidality, are somehow either kind of more unaware or less self-aware, or essentially kind of stupider than other people. So that notion, fortunately, is going away. But there still is a lot of resistance, and I've seen this even very recently within the suicide prevention community, to the idea of people with lived experience supporting each other or supporting others. Now, I want to point out that right now, through Facebook, through Tumblr, I don't know about Twitter, but anyway, there is a lot of this happening right now at this very moment. People are talking to each other. Peer support is really powerfully amplified through social media. These days, all the time, people are seeking out peers to talk about X, Y, Z, and so a lot of that is about things that they're going through that are very hard. So anyway,
so we're going to need to wrap up. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Eduardo. We're getting like the last 2 minutes.
That we're creating. We have a peer specialist for suicide prevention project working right now. Got to talk with other people about it, but this is definitely the right direction that we would want to support.
So go on Twitter, Eduardo, and put some tweets out about that. We're going to do outro really quickly. So everybody, you've wasted another hour of your Sunday night with me. You've stayed up too late. You're going to be tired tomorrow morning, but you don't regret it. You've had a good time. And you've learned a lot about this issue. I think in a way you might not have been able to learn from the various media bits that you've read. If you are interested in what we did tonight, I want you to like this video. I want you to subscribe to the channel. Check in with the SPSM chat on Facebook, or check in with it on Twitter. And next week we are going to be on Easter break, but we will be back in 2 weeks getting ready for AAS. We're going to be talking about conference skills. I'm at Doc Foreman, going to give each of our guests brief, tell us briefly, remind us who you are and where they can find you on social media. And we're going to start with Ursula.
Sure. So I wanted to let people know that we'll be at AAS as well. So Rob and I will be doing a panel on Friday in the evening, and I'm at Ursula Whiteside.
Woohoo! Diana.
And I'm Diana Cortez, and I'm at Cortez, spelled with an S, and then Yanez, Yanez, for whoever would like to contact me.
And let's go ahead, Rob.
Hey, I'm Rob Boyle, product at Facebook, and you can find me at facebook.com/Rob Boyle.
And Eduardo.
You can Twitter me at Eduardo MHASF, or go to my Tumblr blog, Eduardo Vega, mentalwealth.tumblr.com. Sorry, I had to put Tumblr in there, but anyway. Eduardo Vega, mentalwealth.tumblr.
And tweet that out real quick. And then Bart Andrews, take us home.
So what an amazing show as always. I love this. I love SPSM chat. You can reach me at Bart Andrews on Twitter. If you like what I say, it's at Bart Andrews. If you didn't like what I had to say, you can reach me at Desiree Stage. And that's my final thought.
All of our guests, because we've had such an involved panel tonight, are going to do a little bit of tweeting out, hang out, engage with them, make sure that you find them, and keep this conversation going. And Rob, if we can possibly figure out a way to do another event to talk about this on Reddit or another platform, let me know. I'll show up and ask questions. And thank you all. Good night.
Good night, everybody.